This is our morning feeding routine. This is the upper barn where we start and all the feed is located. But there's the duck. We walk in here, we check for eggs. Sometimes we scrape droppings off when they accumulate. We open the door over there and let the chickens out. We check the waters, make sure they are full on water for a day or two. There's an egg down in there we can gather. And basically we just feed about a handful of feed per chicken. And make sure that everybody looks happy and healthy. So all of the feed is located in these hopefully chipmunk-proof containers. Julie's going through and filling up each container with the different kinds of food which are labeled. And you can see emu, this one's the chicken, this is the donkey and horse, and that's the llama. Llama and camels, they get 3/4 of a can, is that right? Half a can. Most of them are marked to the level that you fill them up. So we just fill each one up and then we carry about half a dozen buckets outside and give them to each respective animal.
Need more sheep food.
And we also have to alert Robert as to when the food is running out so we can go and get different kinds of food. But the problem in here is just storing the food so that chipmunks and rodents don't help themselves to it. This is where we feed Sparkles the boy princess and his mother Marmalade some grain, and we feed them some hay at night. And there's also a few chickens that live in here, so we give them a handful of food each, about, and they have a water also. But we keep Marmalade and Spark in here until they're done feeding, because they have Marmalade has a tendency to grab the other animals' food. But we let them out when they're done eating. Sparky. Sparky. And this is the trough right outside the donkey enclosure where we feed Lamorna, the llama, and the one sheep. They each just kind of separate their food on opposite sides. But Lamorna gets half the llama food.
Do you have the horse food?
I think I do. And the horses are also right here, so they don't get much grain. I think the grain they get in the summer is just enough to keep them tame and coming up to visit us. But they have a nice pasture, so sometimes they're reluctant to come up here. But we feed them in this trough, and then they have water over there. We check.
They think they're llamas.
They're coming.
That's the only way they'll come.
Hey, Beth, that's llama food. This is horse food.
Okay.
They're slowly making their way.
Hey, you got your own.
Now this is where it gets interesting, because we have to feed a llama, a ram, sheep, and 5 emus, and they all like to eat each other's food. So we usually feed the llama first because he's the biggest, baddest one in the pen, and then the ram, and then someone runs down and feeds the emus on the other side. And a lot of their food looks the same, so I don't know if they can tell or if they just don't care. But it's all kind of a pellet feed. They like it. And usually the ram will come down and eat some of the emu food because the llama is very greedy and likes to eat all the food. Julie's down there with one emu, feeding out of the can. So we also have two peacocks that kind of roam the property. And if you see them, if we see them, we give them a few handfuls of feed just to keep them on the farm. But they're both males. And I think one is actually, yeah, it's a father and son. And they didn't get along for a while, but now they're pretty close. They tag team the garden and eat the cabbage and the tomatoes. But they're not real tame, they kind of run when you drop by. So after we're done with the large animals, we make our way across the field from the upper barn to the other 5 chicken enclosures. And we've tried to label them. This is lean to 2. And this means there's 8 birds that should be in here. And sometimes that changes. But we just go from one to the next, and again we're feeding about a handful per bird. And if they're locked in, sometimes we're on a rotational basis where some chickens get locked in and others are let out, just so we don't have too much commotion in the chicken yard. If they're locked in, we give them maybe an extra handful or 2 per enclosure, just because they don't have access to fresh grass and bugs. But we're doing the same thing, checking for eggs and just watching the chickens to make sure they're healthy and there's no issues. There's a nice group in here. Any eggs?
Nope.
You gotta watch the sheep and the llama because they try to bust in and eat more chicken food. This is what we call the twig aviary. Julie's feeding them now. And she just did that, throw some feed over the netting just to get them away from the door so you're not rushed by chickens when you come in. But there's a lot of really cool chickens in here. I'll try to show you a few of them. It's a real pretty rooster, a young one, but they're moving fast. A lot of real colorful birds in here. This one's got like earmuffs. This is another interesting part because the pear hut contains about 5,000 birds. What we do is put some feed out here to try to direct the rush out of the door. The duck's taking advantage.
Yeah.
And then we release. And you want to stand clear of the door because they don't really look, they just jump. And then a couple more might jump from the rafters and hit you at the last moment. There's a few more coming out. But then once these birds are out, and these are our chicks from, now they're probably only 9 weeks old, I don't know. But there's a lot of them. After they're all out, we can safely go in and check their feed and water and check for eggs. And again, it's if you're watching this as an instructional video because Robert has asked you to watch his animals, all these feeding and housing instructions are likely to change based on the time of the year, and if there's chicks, there's different kinds of feed, so you just got to get with him and ask him if there's any special instructions. But it's fairly simple to keep these guys alive and happy. There's a nice rooster right here. Look at the colors. Another pretty guy. But that's basically it. That's our morning routine every morning. We usually get out here by 8:30. Make sure everyone has food and water and has survived the night. And just enjoy the view. So then we come down here and we hang out with Spark. Sometimes we brush him, or sometimes we just hang out. Scratch his ears. Try to pick him up. Let me see if I can pick him up one last time. Oh, he doesn't like it.
Anymore.
He was covered with sawdust and stuff.
No.
I'm rolling around. He likes to bite his mom.